My family gave my seat to my ex for an 8% discount, so I took back my $46,000 and everything else. When I parked outside my mother's house in Boulder that Christmas Eve, I felt stupidly hopeful, like maybe this year would be different. I had spent the last 3 days wrapping gifts with names written in metallic marker, the kind that bleeds through thick paper but still looks elegant. They were stacked with military precision in my trunk, arranged by recipient and size. The temperature was just above freezing. My coat still carried the scent of pine from the tree lot, and I was rehearsing how I might actually enjoy the evening. That optimism lasted exactly 93 seconds. Rosa opened the door smiling like she'd invented generosity, holding a foil tray in one hand and waving with the other. I barely had a chance to say Merry Christmas before she cut in, voice high and pleasant. Dean, honey, we gave your seat to Lacey. She got us 8% off the catering. Can you believe that? She said it like she was sharing good news, like I'd laugh and high-five her for the ingenuity. My sister Mara stood behind her, eyes wide with mock sympathy, holding another tray of food wrapped in plastic. Here, take this, she said, shoving it into my arms. So you don't feel left out. Not a plate, not a chair, a tray. A tray of roasted potatoes and buttered carrots, pressed flat by aluminum and pity. I stood there in the entryway with almost $2,000 worth of curated presents still warm from the trunk of my car and no place to set them down. Rosa had already turned back toward the dining room, humming to herself, clearly expecting me to follow, or, more accurately, to leave. I nodded once. I didn't ask which ex they meant, didn't care. I turned around and walked back out like I'd forgotten something, which, in a way, I had. My dignity. The front door closed behind me with a soft finality. I paused in the driveway, then glanced over my shoulder through the dining room window. The seat that used to be mine wasn't just empty. It had been folded, replaced, repurposed like a secondhand lawn chair at a garage sale. Every place at the table had a gold-rimmed name card, clipped to the wine glass with a tiny pine cone. My name was nowhere to be seen. But my ex, Lacey, I guessed, the queen of expired coupons and cashback browser extensions, was there, tucked between Uncle Vince, who once tried to pay for sushi with Canadian coins, and Clint's new girlfriend, who claimed she did professional energy alignment, which I think is rich girl code for unemployed. Lacey caught me watching through the window. She raised her glass and winked like we were sharing an inside joke. I lifted the tray in response and turned away, walked back to my car, and sat behind the wheel for a while. The heater hummed and fogged up the windows as I rested the tray on the passenger seat, right where I had imagined one of the gift bags would go. It had been just under an hour since I pulled up the driveway feeling stupidly excited. I triple-checked my RSVP, even received a thank you email from Rosa that read, "So glad you're coming. Just bring your holiday spirit." Apparently, holiday spirit now meant cash, emotional distance, and not expecting a seat at the table. Every parking space was full, every one but mine, apparently. My name didn't make it onto the guest list, but my bank card was still accepted. That had always been the rule in our family. If you couldn't bring charm or accomplishments, at least bring a visa. So I did what any emotionally literate side character would do in a story they used to think was about them. I sat in my car, ate stuffing with a plastic fork, and listened to Brenda Lee screech rocking around the Christmas tree through half-melted speakers while snow began to coat the windshield. My coat sleeves smelled like pine and my stomach ached, not from hunger, but from that weird pressure behind your ribs that shows up when betrayal is too quiet to scream. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I started making calculations. I texted my banker, "Suspend holiday transfers." Then I opened the shared Google folder, the one titled Family Essentials, but filled mostly with reminders about my contributions. The rent I paid for Mara's apartment in Reno. The lease I was still co-signed on, though I hadn't been there in over a year. The family emergency fund, which mostly went toward Uber Eats and Clint's late-night wine deliveries. I opened the banking app. There were 3 shared cards, 2 recurring transfers, 1 active subscription still in my name for the security system they'd installed with my login. I shut them all down. No announcement, no passive-aggressive message, just silence. Then I opened another folder, one labeled Dad_Taxes_2009, which I'd never bothered to click on before. Inside was a spreadsheet, color-coded and updated as recently as 2 weeks ago. The first sheet was labeled Dean, monthly flow. I clicked it and found rows of numbers. $1,500 in November, $1,700 in October, $1,300 in December. Notes in the margins. Remind Dean bonus season approaching. Ask if he can cover Clint's car insurance. And then, Lacey might come to ski trip, worth including for group discount. Potential sponsor? Sponsor. That was the word they used. Not guest, not plus one, not family. Sponsor. I wasn't a son. I was a revenue stream. I wasn't a brother. I was a silent investor. And Lacey, the girl who once dumped me over a half-warm latte and a missed dinner reservation, was now auditioning for my seat at the table, literally and figuratively. I sat still in the car as the heater sputtered and the music looped back around to the same song. Outside, the lights from the house glowed like nothing had happened, like I hadn't been erased for a discount. I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I didn't call or knock or demand anything. I just sat there in the dark with a plastic fork and a foil tray of someone else's holiday. That was how it began. Back at my apartment, the tray sat untouched on the kitchen counter, still wrapped in foil and shame. I didn't even bother unpacking the trunk, just left the stack of perfectly wrapped gifts sitting beneath the rear windshield like artifacts from a better story. The silence of the place felt heavier than usual. Even the hum of the refrigerator sounded judgmental, like it knew exactly how small I'd been made to feel. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, phone screen lighting up every few minutes from holiday posts, family dinners, wine glasses clinking, string lights glowing around other people's joy. Everyone else got stories filled with laughter and paper crowns and drunken relatives. I got a tray and a wink from my ex through a dining room window I wasn't welcome behind. At 1:17 a.m., I logged back into the shared cloud folder, this time with a different mindset. I wasn't just poking around. I was looking for patterns, trying to make sense of what I already knew deep down but had never fully confronted. There were over 24 documents spread across 5 subfolders, each disguised under names like Winter Budget Overview and Medical Records, Dad. The real content, though, was far less subtle. The spreadsheet titled Dean Financial Flow hadn't been updated since mid-December, but that didn't matter. The trail was clear. Notes appeared beside every transfer I had made since the beginning of the previous summer. Rent payment, $890. Labeled as support for Mara. Car insurance, $162. Marked Dad's Buick, still under Dean's name. A Venmo transfer labeled Birthday Dinner had a note beside it. Clint's card declined, Dean covered. My name showed up again and again, not just as the source of money, but as a backup plan. Further down, I found rows that made my skin go cold. Trip fund, Lacey joining, circled in yellow, followed by potential for joint discount if invited as family. Another line said, remind Dean to increase monthly auto transfer in Q1. Spring break lodging unclear. They weren't just relying on me, they were managing me. Like a tool, like an account, like a concept instead of a person. It was nearly 3 a.m. when I found the document that broke whatever thread of denial I had been holding on to. Hidden beneath a folder titled Dad_Taxes_Archive, there was a document named Long-Term Projections. I opened it, already expecting the worst. The first tab listed tuition estimates for Clint, along with monthly contributions from external sources. Next to those, my name appeared again, cleanly typed in bold. Dean projected contribution, $9,800 annual. Source, stable. Source, like I was a well, not a brother, not a son. A faucet that never needed fixing. My breathing slowed, but not from calm. It was that kind of quiet anger that doesn't explode, it crystallizes. That turns to resolve. I clicked through more tabs. Notes appeared at the bottom of one sheet, scrawled in familiar shorthand. Dean's job bonus hits February. Ask politely. Avoid direct request. Use Mara. I had officially become a business strategy. My family had turned me into a subscription service with guilt-based billing cycles. I backed out of the folder and sat motionless for a few seconds, trying to remember the last time someone in my family asked how I was doing without it leading to a transfer. I couldn't come up with a single example. That's when I opened my banking app again and started going through the numbers with fresh eyes. Over the last 18 months, I had sent just under $37,000 across various platforms: Zelle, Venmo, automatic bill pay, even direct deposit for Clint's classes. I pulled receipts, cross-checked line items, and filed them into folders labeled by recipient. I wasn't just documenting anymore. I was building a record. Around 4:30 a.m., I found the transaction that finally made my hand curl into a fist. A travel card I hadn't used in months was nearly maxed out. When I clicked into the details, a list of charges in Austria started populating. Hotel stays, rail passes, ski lift fees. A fondue reservation for 4. I refreshed the page, feeling like I might actually throw up. Then I opened the linked email account attached to that card, the one I'd once used to book Clint's textbooks freshman year. There it was. A booking confirmation under Clint's name. His profile photo had been updated to something newer, a snowy background, goggles on his forehead, a woman's arm draped over his shoulder. Lacey's scarf was unmistakable. I had bought it for her 3 birthdays ago, back when I still believed in our version of love. A comment thread sat below the post. Living the dream. Rosa wrote, complete with a heart emoji. You deserve it, sweetheart. No shame. No effort to hide it. They had used my saved miles, my backup IDs, even my scanned passport, uploaded during a just-in-case moment a year earlier. Apparently, the emergency had arrived, but it didn't involve me at all. They hadn't just excluded me. They'd used me to fund the celebration of my replacement. I texted Clint one word, Kitzbühel. He replied 2 minutes later, wrong number. The audacity didn't shock me. It confirmed what I had already begun to suspect. He didn't even see it as theft. He saw it as justified borrowing. As if familial proximity came with automatic withdrawal rights. As if kindness, once offered, came with unlimited refills. I didn't scream. I didn't reply. I acted. First, I froze every card linked to family devices. Then I called the bank and flagged every Austria charge as unauthorized, even though the truth was far messier. I revoked boarding passes still in their digital wallets. Canceled train reservations. I even called the hotel and retracted my approval for the stay. According to the desk agent, the booking collapsed mid-check-in. I pictured Clint standing there with Lacey, passport in one hand, suitcase tilting sideways, being told the reservation had unexpectedly changed. I hope it snowed sideways that night. Then I called the airline and revoked every digital check-in they hadn't scanned yet. Rosa had used my travel profile to book the flights. She even input the security answers I'd used back when she needed to reset her own email. When they landed back in the States 2 days later, I didn't have to track the flight. I got a photo from my neighbor, a cracked suitcase, a dad-sized scowl, Rosa on her phone, yelling. Clint dragging his bag with a broken wheel. Still wearing my jacket. At 6:37 a.m., I knocked on their door. They didn't expect me. I didn't wait for permission. I walked in, dropped a printout of the charges on the dining table, and said exactly what needed to be said. 8,000 for 100. You have 3 days. Rosa blinked like she couldn't remember how numbers worked. My dad opened his mouth. I raised my hand and cut him off before he could turn betrayal into a conversation. Clint stepped forward, arms wide in forced calm. Relax. You're being dramatic. I didn't even blink. You stole from me. Lied. Used fake credentials. Took my cards. Took my ex. And acted like it was normal. Clint shrugged like he was explaining a technicality. She said she got a discount. Mom said it was fine. Then he added something that burned slower than rage. You wouldn't have enjoyed it anyway. There it was. Not just theft. Not just exclusion. Justification. My dad tried to ease the tension. Son, we were just trying to make things work. You've always said, if we needed help. I interrupted again. You don't get to ask for help while pretending I don't exist. Then I turned to Rosa, my voice calm but sharp. You let her take my seat. You let her slide back into Clint's arm for 8% off a dinner. And you called it kindness. Her expression wasn't shame. It was inconvenience. Like I was being unreasonable for noticing. So I said it, clearly and coldly. You wanted me out? Fine. Now I'm out. Then I walked away. Not just from the house, but from whatever version of family they believed they still had. And that's when the real audit began. Back home, I didn't bother removing my coat. I tossed it across the arm of the couch, let it slide to the floor, and sat down like the weight of my own decisions had finally caught up to me. My hands were still cold, but my chest felt like it was on fire. The air in the room was sharp and silent, the kind of quiet that follows something irreversible. I opened my laptop without thinking, fingers moving before my brain could catch up. I clicked through folders, banking, documents, shared drives, and began the process of cutting every last tie. It wasn't out of spite or pride. It was survival. There's a moment when you realize people aren't just capable of betrayal, they're capable of building a routine around it. First, I opened the shared account titled Family Safety Net. It was an emergency fund, originally set up after my mom's minor surgery 3 winters ago. But when I checked the transactions, I didn't find anything medical. Instead, I saw late-night Uber Eats charges, 2 eyelash appointment payments listed as urgent, and recurring monthly subscriptions to a dog treat box. My parents didn't even own a dog. I froze the account. Next came the joint lease on Mara's apartment in Reno. I'd co-signed to help her out when her last roommate skipped out mid-contract. That was over a year ago. She had a new job, a new boyfriend, and apparently zero memory of the fact I was still paying half the rent. I pulled up the lease agreement, submitted the exit form, and emailed the landlord a scanned copy of my signature with a note, effective immediately, remove my name from all future payment obligations. Then I checked the shared digital wallet Rosa still used to book travel. Inside were 2 active airline credits, 1 train pass, and a fully loaded travel profile, all under my name. It was connected to my backup passport scan, the one I uploaded after Clint lost his ID 2 summers ago. I deleted everything, removed every linked document, reset every password, revoked all access. Then I opened the family drive and permanently deleted the folder called Travel, Dean. By the time I was done, my fingers ached from typing, but my pulse had finally settled. I leaned back and stared at the ceiling again. Only this time I wasn't empty. I was preparing. The next morning, I woke to a single voicemail. My dad's voice was calm, flat, too rehearsed. Just checking if you'll still cover Clint's January tuition. The deadline's next week. There was no mention of Christmas, no apology for the trip, no acknowledgement of the 8,000 stolen dollars. Just a request. As if I hadn't walked into their house and put the fraud on paper. I didn't call back. I didn't text. I opened a new folder on my desktop titled Restitution Archive and began scanning every receipt. Every payment confirmation, every email. I sent it all to myself, certified, time-stamped, sealed, because something in my gut told me this wasn't over. And when people like my family see you pulling away, they don't try to fix the damage. They try to rewrite it. At 6:11 a.m., my credit card flagged a charge. Just under $4,000 for a guided panorama tour in Lucerne. I sat up immediately, opened the app, and started scanning the transactions. Hotel Bellevue, $1,300. Glacier Rail, $945. Fondue tasting, $78. Spa treatments, lift tickets, thermal baths. Each one matched a location I'd never seen in person but had definitely seen in Instagram posts from my cousin. Her caption from the same hotel balcony, "Family is everything." Except, apparently, for the one paying for it. I flagged every charge, reported each as unauthorized. Then I opened the email connected to the booking account again and saw what I already knew I'd find. Clint's face, same profile, same email address he used when I ordered his first set of college books 5 years ago. Same photo of him in the Alps, goggles on his head, Lacey's hand curled around his jacket sleeve. That jacket was mine too. I knew because I'd worn it every winter for 3 years until it mysteriously vanished during a weekend visit. I messaged Clint again. Just one word, Lucerne. His reply came 2 minutes later. Still being petty? I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Instead, I called the hotel, spoke directly to the front desk, and revoked access using the ID I still legally owned. Then I contacted the rail company and flagged the passes. Then I called the airline. The woman on the phone, polite but weary, confirmed that the digital boarding passes had been retracted mid-scan. It appears the tickets were revoked during check-in, she said, by the original cardholder. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. They landed back in Colorado 2 days later, all 3 of them looking wind-whipped and furious. I didn't have to check the arrival time. My neighbor, the kind who notices everything but pretends not to, sent me a photo. Clint dragging a busted suitcase across the sidewalk, Rosa shouting into her phone, and my dad standing beside the taxi, stunned. Clint was still wearing my coat. Lacey wasn't in the picture, but I didn't need proof. The damage was done. At 6:42 a.m., I knocked on their door. They weren't ready. I didn't wait for an invitation. I stepped inside, walked straight to the dining room table, and dropped a folder with every flagged charge, every email, every flight receipt. 8,710, I said. 3 days. Not 4. 3. My mom blinked like math was a foreign language. My dad looked from the printouts to me as if they'd been part of some mild misunderstanding. Clint, of course, tried to play it off. You're being theatrical, he said. You act like this is criminal. You faked my identity, I said. That's not an argument. It's a felony. He opened his mouth again, but I cut him off. You stole from me. Lied. Used data you had no right to. Then you used it to take a vacation with someone who ghosted me over a lukewarm latte. Rosa stepped forward, lips tight. Dean, sweetheart, this is all a little much. We never meant. To do what? I snapped. Use my passport? Spend my savings? Give my seat to someone who blocked me a year ago. I looked around the room. They weren't ashamed. They were annoyed. Not at what they did, at the fact I had noticed and refused to play along. You let her take my chair, I said again, softer this time. Not because you forgot me. Because you preferred her discount. And they didn't deny it. Not a single word in defense. Just silence. I stepped back, took a breath, and finished what I came to say. You wanted me gone? Congratulations. Now I'm gone. Financially, emotionally, legally. And if I don't see a full refund by the third day, I'm filing a report. My mom's voice was a whisper. You wouldn't. I looked at her like I was seeing her for the first time. You think I'm the same fool who paid your mortgage last April? Clint stiffened. Wait, that wasn't from Dad's friend. No, I said. That was me. Quietly. Just like always. I didn't wait for excuses or backtracking. I turned, walked out, and drove home in absolute silence. Not out of fear. Out of clarity. This wasn't a meltdown. This was an audit. And they had failed it. 3 hours after I walked out of that house, Clint texted me again like nothing had happened. Bro, this is wild. You need to chill. A few minutes later came another message, as if he were still searching for the right combination of words that might unlock my forgiveness. You were never the travel type anyway. I'll pay you back. Just need a few months. Then nothing else. I didn't answer. I let the silence do the talking. He knew what he did. They all did. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd only just started. There's something that happens when you stop trying to be the peacemaker. You start seeing the pattern. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Later that night, I received an alert. Someone had attempted to reset the financial guarantor access on a university portal tied to Clint's enrollment. My email was still connected to the account because I'd been the guarantor the last 2 semesters without being told directly. I clicked through the login history and found it. An uploaded form, scanned and submitted, bearing my name, address, and an awful, slanted version of my signature. Clint had forged it. Not just my name, but my consent. I printed the form, saved the emails, took screenshots of his previous messages where he admitted using my credentials. I gathered it all into a folder labeled Fraud, Clint, and sent it directly to the university's finance office. When the woman on the line called me back at 8:12 the next morning, I didn't hold back. I explained every charge, every lie, every breach of access. She sounded shaken. We're launching an internal investigation, she said. I simply replied, let me know where to send the subpoena. Then I sent the email I'd been preparing all week. The subject line was plain, Liability Summary Q4. The recipients were not. My parents, my siblings, my aunts, and uncles. Every family member who'd ever forwarded me a GoFundMe link or called me in the middle of the night asking for just a little help. Attached were scanned receipts, bank statements, messages, the forged university document, and a spreadsheet labeled Restitution Plan. The total was $46,300. For 2 days, no one responded. Not a single word. Then my Aunt Maggie replied, short and clipped. This seems excessive. Attached was a photo from Christmas dinner. Clint at the head of the table, Lacey beside him, my seat conspicuously empty in the background. It was a lovely night. Sorry you missed it. That did something. Not the guilt they were hoping for, something colder. Something final. I didn't send another message. I called the DMV and reported the Buick as misappropriated property. The title had never been transferred. It was still legally mine. Then, on Sunday morning, I drove to their house. I didn't knock. I used the same spare key I had used since I was 18. The Buick was parked in the driveway, crusted with salt and snow, treated like a communal ashtray. I got in, started the engine, and reversed slowly. Clint came running out in socks, yelling, "What are you doing?" I rolled the window down. "Restoring ownership." "You can't take that," he shouted, knocking on the window like that might change something. "I can," I said. And I just did. Lacey appeared behind him, standing on the porch in my old hoodie, arms crossed. I looked at her for a long second. Didn't know you still wore things that didn't belong to you. She scoffed, rolled her eyes, and shouted after me, "You're insane." I didn't respond. I just drove off with the heater blasting and the windows fogging. 30 minutes later, she texted me, "You could have handled this like an adult." I replied, "I did. You're just not used to consequences." Then I opened the old family folder on my cloud drive and found the deed to the cabin. My grandfather had given it to me years ago in a manila envelope that said, "When you're ready." It had sat in a drawer untouched because I wasn't. But now I was. I scanned the deed, filed it with my attorney, and changed the cabin's access codes. I revoked all shared privileges. My parents hadn't been there in over 3 years, but that wasn't the point. The point was now they couldn't. At 3:42 that afternoon, Rosa called me. She didn't scream. Her voice was so low it was almost hard to hear. "Your grandfather gave you the cabin?" "Yes. That was meant for everyone." "No," I said. "It was meant for someone who didn't treat their son like an ATM." She paused. "We were going to surprise you with a family trip there next year." I laughed. "You already did the surprise part." That evening, Clint texted me again. "The university emailed me. You filed fraud." "Yes. Dude, that's my future." "Exactly." The next morning, he tried calling 6 times. I blocked him. Then my parents showed up at my apartment together. No yelling. No fake tears. No pastries. Just a plain white envelope. My dad handed it to me and waited. "What's this?" "You said restitution," he said. "That's it. $8,700. It's everything from the trip." I didn't touch it. "Restitution is when you're sorry," I said. "This is trying to make me quiet." My mom stepped forward. "You're punishing all of us." I looked at them both, really looked at them. They weren't confused or hurt. They were scared. Of exposure. Of consequences. Of silence. "You wanted me out," I said. "Now you get to prove you never needed me." Then I handed the envelope back and closed the door. 2 days later, they came again, this time dressed like they were headed to a funeral. Rosa held a bouquet of peonies, her favorite, not mine. My dad wore a pressed shirt and the kind of hollow smile you use at job interviews or tax audits. "We want to talk," my mom said. "We think it's time to start fresh." "Start fresh?" I repeated. "Like this is a website you forgot to bookmark?" "We made mistakes," my dad added. "We should have communicated better. You've always been the mature one." "Always." I nodded slowly. "Let's reconnect," I offered. "A dinner. Just the three of us. No distractions." They agreed immediately, as if they'd finally won something back. That night, I booked a restaurant with no public menu. Private dining room. A sommelier who spoke in metaphors. I made the reservation under a different name just in case they got cold feet. Then I made 3 phone calls. One to a private investigator I knew through a client. He compiled a clean, legally formatted report of Clint's fraudulent form submission, including the scan, timestamps, and forged signature. One to a lawyer who drafted a cease and desist letter, pre-addressed to my parents, for unauthorized use of financial data. And one to a friend in HR who prepared a fictional internship offer for Mara, just in case they still thought I'd forgotten her part in all this. The night of the dinner, I wore a charcoal shirt I hadn't touched since I last believed in family. They arrived early. My mom complimented the lighting. My dad made a joke about the no-menu vibe. We drank. We reminisced. We danced around the real story like it wasn't burning through every inch of oxygen in the room. Then, halfway through the 3rd course, I stood and reached into my bag. I placed a folder gently on the table. "What's this?" my dad asked. "A breakdown," I said, "of everything I've paid for since the end of 2011. My mom flipped through the pages, her mouth twitching as she silently read the totals. My dad's face turned pink. Neither of them spoke. Then I clicked send on my phone. 3 new emails hit their inboxes at once. The first from the investigator. Subject, Clint Palmer, fraud documentation. The second from the attorney. Subject, financial misconduct, notice of legal intent. And the third from the HR office. Subject, interview scheduled, Kara Palmer, internship admin lead. They sat frozen, forks halfway to their mouths. Water glasses untouched. "You said you wanted a fresh start," I told them. "This is it." They left the restaurant stunned but smiling, like they'd gotten away with something. "You're being the bigger person," Rosa whispered at the door. My dad gave my shoulder a fatherly pat like I'd agreed to co-sign another loan. I smiled back, nodded politely, and let them walk away. They didn't know it yet. But this time, I wasn't coming back. 2 days after that dinner, the The family group chat came back from the dead like it hadn't burned itself to ash just weeks ago. My aunt posted a meme about forgiveness, something with a sunrise and a quote about second chances. My cousin replied with a Facebook memory from a camping trip a decade earlier, tagging me like nostalgia could replace restitution. And then, of course, Clint. His message was a simple, let's move forward. I messed up. You're still my brother. Still my brother. Like an expired driver's license is still technically a form of identification. I didn't reply. I let their idea of a fresh start echo around the thread, untouched, unanswered, unwelcome. Then my sister texted me directly. I hear you're hosting a picnic. It wasn't a lie. I had casually mentioned it to a neighbor 3 weeks ago while watering the lawn. Might have a few people over. Something small. Family-friendly. Light. But of course, in my family, anything left unsupervised for longer than a day grows legs and turns into a full production. By Saturday, I had already heard from 3 cousins asking what they should bring and whether it was one of those forgiveness events. I didn't correct them. I just booked the space. Printed 17 identical folders. Slipped each one with care into a manila envelope. Inside each folder, a resume template, a job listing tailored to the recipient's particular life pattern, a printed QR code to their local workforce agency, and a sample cover letter that began with the line, I am ready to become a functioning adult. I named it Palmer Family Reboot. The day of the picnic, they arrived overdressed. My mom brought a decorative pie that looked like it belonged in a display case, untouched by actual hands. My sister wore a blazer. My dad wore cologne, an immediate red flag. They looked around like they were expecting a speech or an emotional reveal. What they got instead was silence and a clipboard. I handed out the envelopes one by one. No explanation, no introductions. My cousin opened his first and laughed, thinking it was a joke. My mom opened hers, turned pale, and slowly started flipping pages like she was defusing a bomb. My dad didn't even open his. He just stared at the others, scanning their reactions like he might be next. What is this? My aunt finally asked, her voice tight. Your new beginning, I said. I took the liberty of preparing starter kits. My sister flipped through her folder like it might burn her fingertips. This isn't funny. It's not supposed to be, I said calmly. This is what accountability looks like when you've run out of grace. I turned to my dad. Your job listing is for a warehouse inventory manager. It's based on your previous experience, entry level, full-time, and it includes health benefits. I know you prefer stability. Then to my mom. Community kitchen assistant. Part-time, local. Same place you used to volunteer before you decided I was more convenient. Then to my sister. Receptionist position at a private clinic. Your old manager vouched for you, even after you ghosted 2 weeks in. Then to my aunt. Senior cashier at the co-op you pretend not to shop at. They're hiring again. No one laughed. No one argued. They just stared. Not at me, but at their reflections inside those envelopes. Then I pulled out the final folder, thicker, heavier, and dropped it on the picnic table in front of Clint. He didn't reach for it, so I slid it across the surface until it tapped his hand. Tutoring center, I said. Entry level. $15 an hour. You'll be helping kids prep for college. Irony optional. He didn't even look up. I'm not doing this, he muttered, voice tight. That's okay, I said. Neither am I. Then I lifted my own folder, blank, empty, and held it up. Because I have a job. I have a home. I have a life that doesn't rely on gaslighting and group discounts. I didn't stay long. I didn't eat the pie. I didn't shake hands. I left them there, surrounded by lemonade, paper plates, and the realization that the safety net had been cut loose and replaced with a mirror. If they wanted to call it healing, they could. I called it a final invoice. Later that night, my sister texted again. Are you serious? You actually submitted the fraud claim? Yes, I replied. Clint's enrollment was frozen within the week. His financial aid revoked. He called me 7 times. I didn't pick up. At 10:23 p.m., my mom messaged. I talked to Lacey. She says she regrets everything. Too late. She had already blocked me, probably to beat me to it. At 10:04 the next morning, the Civic sold to a guy who paid in cash. $2,300, handed over with a smile. Still runs decent for its age, he said. I laughed and replied, same could be said for my patience. At 4:57 that evening, I got a ping. Transfer complete. Title changed. Cabin listed. Sole owner, Dean. My grandfather never called to ask how it went. He didn't have to. He knew. By 7 p.m., the family group chat went silent again. No more memes. No second chances. No quotes about healing. Just nothing. Then, at 11:12 p.m., exactly 1 week after I'd been handed a tray of pity vegetables, I received a voicemail. It was my dad. His voice was calm, cold, like he was reading a script written for a stranger. You've made your point. Congratulations. Just know what you've done to this family. I didn't reply. I didn't forward the message. I just sat there for a while, lights off, kitchen quiet, every surface exactly as I left it. For the first time in years, I felt like the ground beneath me had settled. Like I wasn't standing on shaky promises or old guilt. Like I wasn't waiting to be needed and discarded all in the same breath. They wanted me quiet. They wanted me dependable. They wanted me grateful. They wanted me smaller. Instead, I gave them something else. Boundaries. Records. Closure. And most importantly, nothing. Because the last word, when you say it right, is the one you don't speak at all.